Bullies strangled a black student until he passed out. The next day, he unleashed a brutal revenge. Marcus Washington kept his head down as he walked through the halls of Riverside Academy, his worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floors. At 15, his athletic build and height should have made him blend in, but being one of only a handful of black students at the prestigious private school made him stand out in ways he never wanted. His mother had worked 2 jobs to afford the tuition, believing the education would open doors for him. She didn't know about the other lessons he was learning here. The morning bell echoed through the marble hallways as Marcus slipped into his AP history class, taking his usual seat in the back corner. He'd learned that sitting up front drew attention, and attention at Riverside was the last thing he needed. "Look who decided to grace us with his presence," came the familiar sneer. Bradley Thornton III stood in the doorway, his perfectly styled blonde hair and designer uniform making him look like he'd stepped out of a prep school catalogue. Behind him stood his ever-present shadows, Connor Mitchell, whose father owned half the commercial real estate in the city, and Ryan Porter, whose family's law firm had been defending the wealthy for 3 generations. Marcus focused on pulling out his textbook, pretending not to hear them. He'd perfected the art of selective deafness over the past 4 months since transferring here. "I'm talking to you, scholarship," Bradley continued, using the word like a slur. He sauntered over, his Italian leather shoes clicking authoritatively. "Didn't your mother teach you it's rude to ignore your betters?" The mention of his mother made Marcus's jaw clench, but he kept his eyes on his desk. Mrs. Harrison, their history teacher, was still in the hallway talking to another teacher. She wouldn't intervene anyway. Nobody at Riverside ever did. "Maybe he doesn't understand English properly," Connor suggested with mock concern. "You know how it is with these diversity admits. They lower the standards to fill quotas." Ryan laughed, a harsh sound that grated against Marcus's nerves. "My dad says the school only takes them for the statistics, makes us look progressive for the college rankings." Marcus's hands tightened on his pencil until his knuckles turned pale against his dark skin. He could feel other students watching, some with sympathy, most with indifference, none with the courage to speak up. Mrs. Harrison finally entered, and Bradley's crew retreated to their seats with satisfied smirks. As she began discussing the Civil War, Marcus tried to focus on taking notes, but his mind kept drifting to the irony of learning about historical oppression while experiencing its modern incarnation. The cafeteria at Riverside Academy was a study in social stratification. The central tables were occupied by legacy students whose families had attended for generations. Around the periphery, various groups clustered based on wealth, connections, and perceived status. Marcus sat alone at a small table near the kitchen entrance, where the smell of industrial dishwasher steam mixed with overpriced organic food. He'd just unwrapped his homemade sandwich when a shadow fell across his table. Bradley stood there with Connor and Ryan, all 3 wearing identical expressions of malicious amusement. "Eating alone again?" Bradley asked with false sympathy. "That's so sad. Don't any of the other scholarship kids want to be friends?" Marcus continued eating, not trusting himself to speak. His father had taught him about controlling his temper before he'd passed away 3 years ago. "Never let them see they've gotten to you," he'd said. "That's what they want." Connor suddenly grabbed Marcus's sandwich, examining it with theatrical disgust. "What is this, welfare food? Don't they feed you people properly?" Give it back," Marcus said quietly, finally meeting Connor's eyes. "Or what?" Ryan challenged, stepping closer. "You'll report us?" "Who's going to believe you over us?" It was a valid point. The one time Marcus had tried reporting the harassment to the administration, the dean had given him a lecture about fitting in and understanding cultural differences before dismissing him without any action taken against his tormentors. Bradley picked up Marcus's water bottle and slowly poured it over his sandwich, still in Connor's hand. "Oops," he said flatly. "How clumsy of me." The cafeteria had gone quiet, students pretending not to watch while obviously observing every moment. Marcus stood up slowly, his full height making him tower over Bradley by several inches. For a moment, something flickered in Bradley's eyes, not quite fear, but uncertainty. "Sit down," Bradley ordered, his voice less steady than before. Marcus remained standing, his hands relaxed at his sides. He'd been training in mixed martial arts since he was 8, initially at his father's insistence, and later as a way to stay connected to his memory. His instructor, Mr. Chen, had drilled discipline and restraint into him along with the techniques. "Only use force when there's no other option," he'd say, "and never in anger." "I said sit down," Bradley repeated, his face reddening. Marcus picked up his ruined lunch and walked to the trash can, dropping it in with deliberate calm. As he passed their table on his way out, he heard Bradley mutter something about knowing his place and felt the familiar burn of rage in his chest. But he kept walking. In the hallway, he nearly collided with Jasmine Chen, a junior who was one of the few other students of color at Riverside. She'd witnessed the scene through the cafeteria's glass doors. "You should have stood up to them," she said softly. "And accomplish what?" Marcus asked. "Give them an excuse to get me expelled. My mom's breaking her back to keep me here." Jasmine's expression softened. "It's not right what they do to you." "Lots of things aren't right," Marcus replied. "Doesn't mean we can change them." The next few days followed the familiar pattern, subtle comments about his hair, his clothes, his neighborhood, accidentally knocked books from his hands, whispered jokes about affirmative action and crime statistics when teachers weren't listening. Marcus endured it all with stoic silence, counting down the days until graduation. Thursday afternoon, everything changed. Marcus was at his locker after the final bell when Bradley appeared with his usual entourage, plus 2 more football players, Chase Hammond and Tyler Brooks. The hallway was nearly empty, most students having rushed off to their extracurriculars or waiting luxury cars. "We need to talk," Bradley said, his tone different from usual, harder, more determined. "I'm listening," Marcus said, not turning from his locker. "No, somewhere more private," Bradley insisted. "The old music room on the 3rd floor. Now." Marcus finally turned to face them. 5 against 1, and the 3rd floor was mostly abandoned after the music program had been cut. "I'm good here, thanks." "I wasn't asking," Bradley said. Chase and Tyler moved to flank Marcus while Connor and Ryan blocked potential escape routes. "This is a mistake," Marcus warned, his voice steady, despite his accelerating heartbeat. "The only mistake," Bradley said, "was letting you think you belonged here." They moved as a group, Chase and Tyler gripping Marcus's arms with practiced ease. They were both varsity wrestlers. Marcus could have broken free, but that would require techniques that would escalate the situation beyond return. He let them guide him up the stairs, his mind racing through options. The old music room was dusty and forgotten, empty except for a few broken chairs and an out-of-tune piano. They pushed Marcus inside, Tyler closing and locking the door behind them. "You've been here 4 months, Bradley began, pacing like a prosecutor. 4 months of contaminating our school with your presence. Do you have any idea what Riverside was like before they started letting people like you in?" "Whiter?" Marcus suggested, unable to help himself. Bradley's face darkened. "Purer, more refined. Our families built this institution over generations, and now they just hand out spots to anyone who can sob-story their way in." "I earned my place here," Marcus said. "My grades." "Your grades don't matter," Bradley exploded. "Don't you get it? This isn't about grades or merit or any of that liberal garbage. This is about tradition, heritage, legacy, things you'll never have or understand." Connor stepped forward. "My grandfather went here. My father went here. This school is in our blood. And you're a contamination," Ryan added. "A virus that needs to be purged." Marcus felt the familiar weight of being seen not as a person, but as a symbol. a threat to their perceived superiority. So, what now? You brought me here to lecture me about bloodlines? No, Bradley said, cracking his knuckles. We brought you here to teach you a lesson about knowing your place. They rushed him simultaneously. Marcus's training kicked in automatically. He sidestepped Tyler's grab, ducked under Chase's swing, and created distance. But 5 attackers in a confined space were too many to evade indefinitely. Connor managed to grab his arm, and when Marcus twisted to break free, Ryan caught his other arm. "Hold him!" Bradley commanded. Marcus struggled against their grip, but Chase joined in, and together they forced him to his knees. His mind raced through escape techniques, but each one would require potentially serious injury to his attackers. Despite everything, he wasn't ready to cross that line. "You think you're so smart," Bradley said, standing over him. "So much better than us because you got some scholarship. But you're nothing. You'll always be nothing. Is that what your daddy tells you?" Marcus shot back, his voice strained from the awkward position. "To make you feel better about buying your way through life?" Bradley's fist caught him in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs. Marcus gasped, doubling over as much as the hands holding him would allow. "Watch your mouth," Bradley snarled. "You don't talk about my family." "Why?" Marcus wheezed. "Ashamed of how they made their money." "I looked it up. Your great-grandfather made his fortune in the 30s. Want to guess how he managed that during the Depression?" Bradley hit him again, this time across the face. Marcus tasted blood. "Shut up!" "Redlining," Marcus continued, spitting blood. "Keeping families like mine out of neighborhoods, denying them loans, trapping them in poverty while your family got rich off their desperation." "I said shut up." Bradley moved behind Marcus, and suddenly an arm wrapped around his neck. Marcus recognized the choke immediately, a poorly applied rear naked choke. Bradley clearly had no real training, just mimicking what he'd seen in movies. Under normal circumstances, Marcus could have easily countered it, but with 3 people holding him in place, his options were limited. "Bradley, ease up," Tyler said nervously as Marcus's face began to redden. "No," Bradley tightened his grip. "He needs to learn." The pressure on Marcus's carotid arteries was building. He could feel his pulse pounding in his ears, his vision starting to tunnel. This was beyond bullying now. This was genuinely dangerous. "Dude, he's turning purple," Connor said, his grip on Marcus's arm loosening slightly. "Good," Bradley hissed. "Maybe next time he'll remember what happens when he forgets his place." Marcus's vision was fading to black, his consciousness slipping away despite his attempts to stay alert. The last thing he heard was Chase saying, "Bradley, stop! He's going out," before darkness claimed him completely. Consciousness returned slowly, accompanied by a throbbing headache and a throat that felt like sandpaper. Marcus blinked up at the ceiling, recognizing the water-stained tiles of the old music room. He was alone. Pushing himself up to a sitting position, he checked his phone. He'd been out for nearly 5 minutes. They'd knocked him unconscious and just left him there. His hands shook as he touched his neck, feeling the tenderness where Bradley's arm had pressed. They could have killed him. Whether through ignorance or malice, they had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't about belonging or fitting in anymore. This was about survival. Marcus stood slowly, testing his balance. Everything seemed to be working, though his head pounded with each movement. He made his way to the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face and examining the bruising beginning to form on his neck. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Working late tonight. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. Love you." He stared at the message, thinking about how hard she worked to give him opportunities, how proud she was that he attended Riverside. She didn't know the cost of that attendance, the daily humiliations he endured, but today had changed everything. They had literally choked him unconscious. That wasn't something he could ignore or endure anymore. His father's voice echoed in his memory. There's a difference between being strong and being a victim. Know when to stand up. The next morning, Marcus arrived at school early. He'd spent the night thinking, planning, preparing mentally for what needed to happen. The bruises on his neck were hidden beneath a high collar, but they served as a constant reminder of yesterday's assault. He went through his morning classes in a focused calm, ignoring Bradley's smirks and Connor's whispered comments. They thought they'd won, that they'd finally broken him. They were wrong. At lunch, Marcus didn't go to his usual isolated table. Instead, he walked directly to the center of the cafeteria where Bradley held court with his crew. The conversation at their table died as he approached. "What do you want?" Bradley asked, his voice carrying across the now quiet cafeteria. "To finish our conversation from yesterday," Marcus said calmly. Ryan laughed nervously. "What conversation? You must have dreamed it." "The one where you five held me down and choked me unconscious," Marcus said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Phones appeared in hands, sensing drama. Bradley's face flushed. "You're delusional. Nobody touched you." "Really?" Marcus pulled down his collar, revealing the purple and black bruising around his throat. Gasps rippled through the cafeteria. "This just appeared on its own. You probably did it to yourself," Connor suggested weakly. "For attention," Marcus smiled coldly. "Strange how I'd managed to choke myself unconscious. But you know what? You're right about one thing yesterday. I do need to know my place." He stepped closer to their table. Bradley stood up, trying to maintain his position of authority. "My place," Marcus continued, "isn't cowering while spoiled legacies who've never earned anything in their lives try to make themselves feel superior by attacking someone they see as beneath them." "Watch yourself," Bradley warned, but his voice lacked yesterday's confidence. "No," Marcus said simply. "I'm done watching. Done being silent. Done pretending this is acceptable." Tyler stood up beside Bradley. "You want to make something of it?" Marcus's stillness was answer enough. There was something different about him today, a coiled readiness that made the football players exchange uncertain glances. 5 against 1 yesterday," Marcus said. "How about 1-on-1 today? Any of you. Right here, right now." The cafeteria was dead silent, everyone watching, phones recording. This was the kind of moment that would spread through social media within hours. Bradley laughed, but it sounded forced. "We're not going to fight you in the middle of school. We're not animals." "No," Marcus agreed. "Animals don't choke people unconscious for being the wrong color." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Bradley's face went from red to purple. "You want to make this about race?" he snarled. "You already did," Marcus replied. Every diversity admit comment, every "you people" reference, every suggestion that I don't belong here because my family didn't buy their way in generations ago, you made it about race the moment I walked through those doors. Chase stepped forward. "He's trying to bait us. Don't fall for it." But Bradley was beyond reasoning. His privilege had been challenged publicly, his authority questioned in front of the entire school. He lunged at Marcus with a wild swing. Marcus moved with fluid precision, redirecting Bradley's momentum and sending him stumbling past. Bradley caught himself against a table and spun around, his face contorted with rage. "Lucky dodge," he spat. "Not luck," Marcus said. "Training. 8 years of mixed martial arts. My dad started teaching me when I was 7. Want to know why?" Bradley charged again. This time, Marcus didn't just evade. He caught Bradley's arm, pivoted his hip, and executed a perfect shoulder throw. Bradley hit the ground hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs. The cafeteria erupted in shocked exclamations. Nobody had ever seen anyone handle Bradley Thornton III like that. Connor and Ryan started forward, but Marcus held up a hand. "You want some too?" Or should I tell everyone how 5 of you had to hold me down yesterday because none of you could handle me one-on-one? They hesitated, their bravado evaporating under the weight of public scrutiny and Marcus's demonstrated capability. Bradley struggled to his feet, his perfectly styled hair now disheveled, his designer shirt untucked. "You're done at this school. My father will—" "Your father will what?" Marcus interrupted. "Call the dean? Demand my expulsion? Go ahead, but everyone here has already recorded this. They saw you attack me first. They heard me talk about yesterday's assault. You think your father's influence extends to every social media platform, every news outlet that would love a story about racial violence at an elite private school?" For the first time since Marcus had known him, Bradley looked genuinely afraid. Not physically afraid, but afraid of consequences, of exposure, of the family reputation he'd been trained to protect. "This isn't over," Bradley said, trying to salvage some dignity. "Yes, it is," Marcus replied firmly. "You're going to leave me alone. All of you. No more comments, no more accidents, no more harassment. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you really are. And unlike your great-grandfather's generation, you can't hide behind segregation laws and systemic oppression anymore. The world's watching now." He turned to address the wider cafeteria, many still recording. "I came to this school to learn, to better myself, to take advantage of opportunities my parents sacrificed to provide. I've endured 4 months of harassment because I believed suffering in silence was strength. I was wrong. Strength is standing up, not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you." Marcus looked back at Bradley and his crew. "Your time of running this place through intimidation is over, and if any of you touch me or any other scholarship student again, what happened today will seem gentle compared to what comes next." He picked up his backpack and walked out of the cafeteria, leaving stunned silence in his wake. As he reached the door, applause started. First one person, then another, then dozens. Not everyone, but enough. Other scholarship students, other minorities, even some wealthy students who'd grown tired of Bradley's tyranny. In the hallway, Marcus found Jasmine waiting. "That was incredible," she said, eyes shining. "Stupid, but incredible." "Maybe," Marcus admitted, the adrenaline starting to fade. "But necessary. What do you think will happen?" Marcus considered the question. "Bradley's parents will probably complain. The administration will probably call my mother. There might be consequences, but at least now it's in the open. They can't pretend it's not happening anymore." His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Check your email." Marcus opened his email to find a video file. It was security footage from the old music room, showing the entire assault from yesterday. The timestamp was clear, the faces visible, the choke undeniable. Another message followed, "Insurance," from someone who should have spoken up sooner. Jay. He looked at Jasmine, who gave him a small smile. "My part-time job is helping with IT, including maintaining the old security cameras everyone thinks are broken. You could get in trouble for this. So could you. But some things are worth the risk." That afternoon, Marcus was called to the dean's office. Dean Whitfield, a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a country club catalogue, sat behind his massive oak desk with a pained expression. "Mr. Washington, we need to discuss the incident at lunch." "Which one?" Marcus asked. "The one where I defended myself, or the one yesterday where 5 students assaulted me?" The dean's expression tightened. "We have no record of any incident yesterday." Marcus pulled out his phone and played the security footage. The dean's face went pale as he watched Bradley choke Marcus unconscious. "Where did you get this? Does it matter? 5 students assaulted me, including rendering me unconscious with a dangerous chokehold. That's felony assault. Should I forward this to the police, or will the school actually do something about it?" Dean Whitfield was silent for a long moment, calculating political ramifications, donor relationships, and public relations nightmares. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "Justice," Marcus said simply. "Real consequences for Bradley and his friends. Protection for scholarship students from harassment. And actual change, not just empty promises. The Thornton family has been part of this institution for—" "I know," Marcus interrupted, "generations, built on generations of excluding people like me. But times change, Dean Whitfield. You can change with them or be left behind." The dean sighed heavily. "I'll need to discuss this with the board." "You do that. But know that if Bradley or his friends come near me again, this video goes public, along with a detailed account of every incident from the last 4 months. I've been documenting everything." Marcus stood to leave, then turned back. "My mother works 2 jobs to send me here because she believes in education, in opportunity, in the American dream. Don't make her sacrifice meaningless." Over the next week, changes rippled through Riverside Academy. Bradley and his crew were suspended pending a disciplinary hearing. Their parents hired lawyers, but the video evidence was undeniable. Connor and Ryan received 2-week suspensions. Chase and Tyler got 1 week. Bradley, as the primary aggressor who had actually choked Marcus unconscious, faced potential expulsion. Marcus became something of a legend among the scholarship students. He'd done what none of them had dared, stood up to the untouchable elite, and won. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired. Sitting in the library a week after the confrontation, Jasmine found him reading. "Bradley's parents pulled him out," she said. "They're sending him to boarding school in Switzerland." Marcus looked up. "Running away? Or protecting him from consequences, same as always for people like them?" "Maybe. But at least he's gone. And the others know what happens now if they try the same thing." Jasmine sat down across from him. "You change things here. Maybe not everything, but something. My dad used to say that change happens one person at a time, one stand at a time," Marcus said. "I just wish it hadn't taken them literally choking me out to find my voice. Sometimes that's what it takes. The important thing is, you found it." Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Principal called. Said you've been selected for the Leadership Excellence Award. I'm so proud of you, baby. Your father would be too." He smiled, thinking about his father, who'd taught him to fight, but more importantly, when to fight. About his mother, whose sacrifice and strength gave him the courage to stand up. About all the students who would come after him, who might face less harassment because he'd refused to be silent. The library was peaceful, afternoon sun streaming through tall windows. For the first time in 4 months, Marcus felt like he actually belonged at Riverside Academy, not because they'd accepted him, but because he'd claimed his place. Connor appeared in the library doorway, hesitating when he saw Marcus. They stared at each other for a moment, then Connor nodded, a small gesture of acknowledgement, maybe even respect, before walking away. Change was slow, Marcus thought, but it was happening. That evening, Marcus attended his MMA training for the first time since the incident. Mr. Chen noticed the fading bruises on his neck immediately. "You fought?" he asked, concerned. "I defended myself," Marcus corrected, "and others who couldn't." Mr. Chen studied him carefully. "And how do you feel?" Marcus considered the question. "Like I finally understood what you've been teaching me. It's not about the techniques or the strength. It's about knowing when to use them and when not to, and when someone crosses the line from harassment to actual violence. You protect yourself and others, Mr. Chen finished. Your father would be proud." As they began warming up, other students in the class peppered Marcus with questions. Word had spread about the Riverside incident, the video having made its way through various social media channels. "Show us the throw you used," one younger student asked eagerly. Marcus demonstrated the shoulder throw, explaining the importance of using an attacker's momentum against them. "But remember," he said, echoing lessons his father and Mr. Chen had taught him, "the best fight is the one you avoid. I endured 4 months of harassment without fighting because fighting should always be the last resort." "But they hurt you," the student protested. "They did. And when they crossed the line from words to potentially lethal violence, I responded. But only as much as necessary to end the threat. I could have really hurt them, but I chose control over vengeance." Mr. Chen nodded approvingly. "This is the way of a true martial artist." As Marcus continued training, he thought about the journey ahead. Riverside Academy wouldn't change overnight. There would still be prejudice, still be those who saw him as not belonging. But now they knew he wouldn't be an easy target. More importantly, other students like him knew they didn't have to suffer in silence. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. When he checked it later, it was from a freshman, another scholarship student. "Thank you for standing up. It gives the rest of us hope." Marcus saved the message. On the hard days ahead, and there would be hard days, he would remember that his stand meant something beyond just his own dignity. 3 weeks after the cafeteria confrontation, Marcus was studying in the library when Bradley's former crew approached his table. He tensed, ready for confrontation, but their body language was different, subdued, almost respectful. "Can we talk?" Ryan asked, pulling out a chair. Marcus nodded cautiously. "We wanted to apologize," Connor said, the words seemingly difficult for him. "Not because we have to, but because, well, we've been thinking. Our parents made us watch the video," Tyler added. "The whole thing. Made us see what we really looked like." "And," Marcus prompted, "and we looked like monsters," Chase admitted. "My little sister saw it online. She asked me why we were hurting you. I couldn't answer her." Ryan leaned forward. "Look, we're not saying we're suddenly enlightened or whatever, but we're saying we were wrong. The whole thing, the harassment, the comments, especially what happened in that room." "Bradley took it too far," Connor said. "We all did. You could have pressed charges, ruined our futures, but you didn't." "I still could," Marcus reminded them. "We know," Tyler said. "That's not why we're here. We're here because we need to own what we did, and to tell you it won't happen again. Not to you, not to anyone." Marcus studied their faces, looking for deception, but finding what appeared to be genuine remorse. "Words are easy. What about actions?" "We're starting a mentorship program," Connor said. "Pairing scholarship students with legacy students, not as charity but as equals, learning from each other. The administration loves the idea," Ryan added with a bitter smile. "Great PR after the incident." "And you're doing this why?" Marcus asked. Chase was quiet for a moment. "Because my little sister was right to be disappointed in me. Because we were raised to think we were better than others just because of where we came from. Because you showed us we were wrong, and pretending otherwise would just be lying to ourselves." Marcus considered their words. "And Bradley?" "Gone," Connor said. "His parents blamed us for not stopping him." "Maybe they're right. He made his own choices," Marcus said. "You all did." "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "And now we're trying to make better ones." They stood to leave, but Tyler turned back. "For what it's worth, that throw in the cafeteria was pretty sick. Where'd you learn that?" "My father," Marcus said simply. "He must be a hell of a teacher." "He was," Marcus said, and something in his tone made them nod respectfully before walking away. Later that evening, Marcus's mother finally had time to sit down with him for dinner. She'd been working extra shifts, but tonight she'd made his favorite, her famous jerk chicken with rice and peas. "The school called again today," she said, serving him a generous portion. "They want to feature you in their diversity report." Marcus snorted. "Of course they do. You don't want to do it?" "They want to use me to make themselves look good, Mom." Like they're some progressive institution when they let Bradley and his friends terrorize me for months. His mother reached across the table and took his hand. Then make them earn it. If they want to use your story, make sure they tell the whole truth. Make sure they commit to real change, not just publicity. You're not mad about the fight. Mad? She squeezed his hand. Baby, when I saw those bruises on your neck, when I watched that video, I wanted to go down there myself. Your father always said there's a time for peace and a time for standing up. You found your time. I miss him, Marcus said quietly. He's with you, his mother said, touching his chest over his heart. Every technique he taught you, every lesson about control and discipline, he's the reason you could defend yourself without becoming like them. I wanted to hurt them, Marcus admitted. When I woke up in that room, when I realized what they'd done, I wanted to make them pay. But you didn't. You showed them who you really are. Someone with strength and restraint, power and principle. That's your father's legacy, and now it's yours. As the semester progressed, Riverside Academy slowly adjusted to its new reality. The mentorship program Connor had mentioned actually materialized, with Marcus reluctantly agreeing to participate. He was paired with a nervous freshman named Anthony, another scholarship student who reminded Marcus of himself those first weeks. They really choked you out, Anthony asked during their first meeting. They did, Marcus confirmed, but that's not the important part. What is? The important part is that I survived, that I stood up, and that things are changing because of it. I got called Diversity Admit 3 times this week, Anthony said quietly. By who? Anthony named a few sophomores Marcus recognized as Bradley's former admirers. We'll handle it, Marcus said. Together. That's what this program is supposed to be about. The next day, Marcus and Connor approached the sophomores together. The conversation was brief but effective. Connor's presence as a legacy student supporting Marcus sent a clear message. The old ways were dying. This is weird, Connor admitted afterward. A month ago, I would have been on their side. What changed? Marcus asked. Connor thought about it. You did. When you threw Bradley, when you stood there ready to fight all of us, I realized we'd never actually earned anything we claimed made us superior. We were just born lucky and mistook that for merit. Some people never learn that lesson. Bradley won't, Connor agreed. I got an email from him. He's already making connections at his new school, probably starting the same cycle there. Then someone there will have to stop him, Marcus said. Maybe. Or maybe he'll just go through life thinking he's superior, never realizing how small that makes him. Jasmine joined them, carrying a laptop. The school paper wants to do a feature on the changes since the incident. They want to interview both of you. Marcus and Connor exchanged glances. Together? Connor asked. That's the point, Jasmine said. To show that things can change, that people can change. I'm in if you are, Connor said to Marcus. Marcus nodded. Let's tell the truth. All of it. The interview was published the following week under the headline, Breaking the Silence, a story of violence, justice, and redemption at Riverside Academy. It didn't shy away from the ugly truths, the casual racism, the systemic failures, the violent assault, but it also highlighted the changes, the accountability, and the possibility of growth. Marcus's mother framed the article, hanging it next to his father's black belt and a photo of the 3 of them from happier times. You're making a difference, she told him, not just for yourself, but for every student who comes after you. The dean called a school-wide assembly to address what he carefully termed recent events. Marcus sat with Anthony and other scholarship students, while across the aisle, Connor sat with the reformed members of Bradley's former crew. Riverside Academy has always prided itself on excellence, Dean Whitfield began. but we must acknowledge that we have not always lived up to our highest ideals. Recent events have shown us that excellence without equity is hollow, that tradition without justice is merely oppression with better marketing. Someone snorted, probably one of Bradley's remaining sympathizers, but the dean continued. Effective immediately, we are implementing a zero-tolerance policy for harassment based on race, economic status, or any other factor. We are also establishing a diversity and inclusion committee with real power to investigate and address complaints. This committee will include students, particularly those from our scholarship program. Marcus felt Anthony elbow him excitedly. Real change, backed by policy. After the assembly, Marcus found himself walking with Connor and Jasmine. "Think it'll stick?" Jasmine asked. "Some of it," Marcus said. "Change is slow. There will still be Bradley types, still be people who think money and legacy make them superior. But at least now there are consequences. And examples," Connor added, "of what happens when you cross the line and what's possible when you open your mind." As they reached the parking lot, a familiar car pulled up, Marcus's mother, getting off her first job to take him to his training before her night shift. "That your mom?" Connor asked. "Yeah. 2 jobs to send you here. 3 sometimes during busy seasons." Connor was quiet for a moment. "That's real strength. My parents just write checks." Marcus's mother waved, and he could see the pride in her eyes, not just for what he'd accomplished, but for who he was becoming. "I should go," Marcus said. "Training?" Jasmine asked. "Always. My dad used to say the moment you think you've learned enough is the moment you start forgetting." As he walked to the car, Connor called out, "Hey, Marcus!" He turned back. "Thank you," Connor said simply, "for standing up, for showing us who we really were, and for giving us a chance to be better." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of those words from someone raised to never apologize, never show weakness, never acknowledge fault. In the car, his mother asked, "How was your day?" "Better," Marcus said. "Each one's a little better." "That's all we can ask for," she said, pulling into traffic. "Your father used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear." "I was terrified," Marcus admitted, "when they were choking me, when I stood up in the cafeteria, even during the interview. But you did it anyway. That's what makes you brave." As they drove toward the gym, Marcus watched Riverside Academy disappear in the rearview mirror. It would never be the safe, welcoming place the brochures promised, but it was different now. Scarred but healing, imperfect but improving. His phone buzzed with a message from Anthony. "Some seniors tried to hassle me about my clothes. I told them about you. They backed off immediately. Your reputation is keeping us safe." Marcus smiled, not through violence but through the promise of consequences, through the knowledge that scholarship students were no longer alone, no longer voiceless. At the gym, Mr. Chen was teaching a class of young students. He nodded for Marcus to join him in demonstrating techniques. "Today," Mr. Chen announced, "Marcus will show you why we train, not to hurt others, but to protect ourselves and those who cannot protect themselves." As Marcus demonstrated a series of defensive moves, he explained each one's purpose, not to attack, but to neutralize threats. The young students watched with rapt attention. "But what if someone really tries to hurt you?" one student asked. "Then you do what's necessary to stop them," Marcus said. "No more, no less." Violence should always be the last resort, but when someone threatens your life or safety, you have the right to defend yourself. Marcus learned this lesson the hard way, Mr. Chen added, but he applied it with wisdom and restraint. After class, Marcus stayed to train alone, working through forms his father had taught him years ago. Each movement was a meditation, a connection to his past, and a preparation for his future. His phone lit up with another message, this time from a number he didn't recognize. "I'm a freshman at Riverside. I'm black, and I've been scared to come to school since I heard about what happened to you. But seeing you stand up, seeing things change, it gives me hope. Thank you." Marcus saved this message too, adding it to a growing collection of similar ones. They were reminders that his stand wasn't just about him, it was about every student who'd been made to feel less than, every person who'd been told they didn't belong. As he finished his training, Mr. Chen approached. "Your father would be proud of the man you're becoming." "I hope so. I know so. You faced violence with discipline, hatred with dignity, and injustice with courage. You've honored his memory and his teachings." Driving home with his mother after her shift, Marcus watched the city lights blur past. In a few months, he'd gone from a silent victim to a symbol of resistance. It wasn't a role he'd sought, but it was one he'd accepted. "Mom," he said quietly, "do you think things will really change? Not just at Riverside, but everywhere?" His mother considered the question. "Change is like water on stone, baby. It seems like nothing's happening. Then one day you look and the stone has been carved into something new. You're part of that water now, wearing away at the stone of prejudice and privilege. It's exhausting, I know, but that's why we keep going, for your children and their children, so they don't have to fight the same battles." Marcus nodded, understanding the generational weight of their struggle. His father had fought different battles, his mother continued to fight hers, and now he had his own. Back home, Marcus sat at his desk, looking at the acceptance letter he'd hidden in his drawer. An invitation to a summer program at an elite university, full scholarship, based on his academic achievements and what they called his demonstrated leadership in promoting diversity and inclusion. He hadn't told anyone yet, still processing what it meant. More opportunities, but also more challenges. More chances to make a difference, but also more battles to fight. His phone rang, Connor calling. "Hey, weird question," Connor said, "but would you be willing to teach me some of those moves? Not to fight, but, I don't know, to understand, to be able to protect people instead of hurting them." Marcus smiled. "Come to my gym Saturday morning. We'll start with the basics." "Really?" "Everyone deserves a chance to learn, to grow. That's what this is all about, right?" After hanging up, Marcus pulled out the acceptance letter again. He thought about Bradley, probably spreading his poison at a new school. He thought about Anthony and the other scholarship students still navigating Riverside's challenging waters. He thought about his father's lessons and his mother's sacrifices. Tomorrow, he would show the letter to his mother. Tomorrow, he would continue mentoring Anthony. Tomorrow, he would train with Connor, teaching someone from Bradley's world a different way to be strong. But tonight, he simply sat with the knowledge that he'd survived, that he'd stood up, and that he'd made a difference. The bruises on his neck had faded, but the lessons remained, both the ones he'd learned and the ones he'd taught. Outside his window, the city hummed with life, with struggle, with possibility. Marcus Washington, once the silent new kid, now a voice for change, closed his eyes and felt his father's presence, his mother's love, and his own growing strength. The fight wasn't over. It might never be truly over, but he was ready for whatever came next, armed with discipline, dignity, and the unshakable knowledge that standing up for what's right is always worth the risk.